Read it. Well, fantastic to be here, Speaker's Corner again. And the first thing I want to say, it's cold, and I'm glad it's cold.
You did predict it.
We predicted these very cold spells in after mid and late March, and we have them here now. There has been heavy hail and snow in places, which is fantastic. So the climate change story is nonsense, and we predicted this from solar activity, which is the driver of all weather and climate. And man's influence on it is infinitesimal, and the man-made climate change CO2 story is a pack of lies. Which brings me to the conference I was at yesterday. A new conference, a real left conference it was called, formerly left lockdown skeptics, and it was about fighting the WEF. And a very important and interesting meeting, and of course you would expect left MPs to be interested in it, but they were not. And none of them turned up, my brother included. Although one would hope that the left would be interested. But one MP did send us a message, and it was Andrew Bridgen MP, who is described as far right. And his message was, he couldn't make it, but he was interested in what we were talking about. My comment is, we are no longer dealing in the politics of right and left. This is now about right and wrong.
Yes. Here.
Yes. Very important. Because now, I think it was clear at that meeting that people recognise that the official politics of the main parties and right and left division is to control and confuse and keep us in a circus of inaction. And there I talked about four things. One, about the World Economic Forum and climate nonsense and what they're doing. Secondly, the absurdity of man-made climate change. Thirdly, how we got to that position. And fourthly, how to break it. And I'm going to be very brief on all of these things. On the WEF agenda, let us be clear. They propagate environmentalism purely to control you. And their so-called environment advances are actually nonsense and the opposite. For example, electric cars. Electric cars cause more pollution than ordinary cars because of the massive energies involved in making the batteries and the disgusting pollution caused by the mining of the cobalt and so on, and the torture of children in the Congo in order to mine these things, which is really terrible. A whole lot of things you could go on about WEF policies, but let's be clear. They are there purely to control you. They're nothing about doing good to the environment. Secondly, the absurdity of man-made climate change. I pointed out there something which isn't so well known, is that the idea that man is having any significant influence on the biosphere is actual rubbish. Because in terms of the carbon content of the whole biosphere, plants have 85% of the carbon in the world, which is 450 billion tonnes. Mankind's contribution is a dot within a dot. It is 0.01% of the total carbon content of the biosphere. And it is, if you want to know in billions of tonnes, 0.06 billion tonnes, right? and you know, microbes, fish, even so-called viruses have more total mass than mankind. Let's be clear. Man is an insignificant dot, and the idea that he's controlling this is utter nonsense. And of course we have so many conspiracy theories around that they're making you believe that mankind can control the weather and climate and even earthquakes. All that stuff is nonsense. There is small amounts of weather control that can be done, that is true, with later citizens, with silver iodide or solid CO2 put in clouds to make cloud seeding. That is real, that is done, but it is not a big deal. The chemtrails you see are mainly, or probably entirely, actually poisonous things, heavy metals, being sprayed on you to upset crops. The idea you could cover the sky with enough sand or dust or whatever in order to change climate is nonsense, because look, here we have normal cloud cover. You can't compare that. What controls the climate is going to be variations in the jet stream. That involves whole activity from the sun. The whole of the solar wind controls that. And, you know, man's contribution to that by whatever machines he has is infinitesimal. So it can't be done. And it's interesting, I pointed out at the meeting, that people that talk complete nonsense, like the man can control earthquakes, do not get shut down by YouTube, although it's a pack of lies. Whereas when we speak truth about the con of man-made climate change, or the truth about the jab or injection program, we get shut down. The point is, the powers that be shut down the truth, and they will not shut down nonsense that is put out within the movement to make us look stupid. So beware of ultra conspiracy. Right, now then, third point then. Well, the second point, or more of it, absurdity of man-made climate change. I don't need to go into that, except just to say, look, repeat again, because it's now becoming more and more important. The climate agenda is at the top of all their brainwashing agendas. We know as a fact, and it is on the graph, which is not here, but we've got the climate con on the list, that carbon dioxide levels follow changes in temperature, not the other way around. And that is enough to know the man-made climate theory is nonsense. And all the theories of greenhouse gases are nonsense. So the justification for destroying farms in Holland, of course, is also nonsense, because that is about another greenhouse gas, nitrous oxide. And the greenhouse gases have no effect whatsoever on climate. Repeat that. Think about it. And if you want to know more, come to weatheraction.com and download the pamphlet Man-Made Climate Change Does Not Exist, written by myself and Philip Foster. Okay. We discussed it also yesterday. How did the world come to believe that man was so important and believe in these conspiracies, these complete fake science? And I think there was two things worth noting. One is that education since the 60s has been deliberately dumbed down. Higher education is rote learning, and you believe in the narrative and repeat it. That is what the exam structure does. And hyper specialisation. So somebody doing climate science and someone doing solid state physics or someone doing particle physics, they won't know what each other are doing, but they're all prepared to believe the other one. You scratch my back and I'll shut up when you talk nonsense. Well, so that is how higher education works.
You can get funding for
scientific
research.
narrowing. And the second thing is the funding, as just mentioned. Massive expenditure by Bill Gates, shoveling money into the BBC, into Imperial College, Oxford, Cambridge, Reading, all of these things that propagate the lie of man-made climate change. And I would say, from my own experience, the people that propagate the lie of man-made climate change, they know it's a pack of lies, which is why, well, they admit it off record sometimes, but they will never have a public debate because they know they will be defeated. We have to struggle for evidence-based science, and it is only us in the movement fighting for this. Let us be clear, the main political parties have given up on that. They are meant to be running the country. The World Economic Forum is totally against evidence-based science. They demand the end of democracy in order to impose fake science, because you can only impose fake science by ending debate. Only. If you have debate, fake science is destroyed. They must destroy debate. They need a new Stalinism, a new fascism, whatever you want to call it, in order to end science and end debate. Okay, so how are we going to break this? Well, the key implementers of the World Economic Forum policy are the local councils. The governments are up in charge supposedly, but you look all of a sudden in this country, all of the councils, all of them are suddenly talking about zoning, low traffic neighbourhoods, ultra low emission zones, clean air zones, 15-minute cities. They're all doing it simultaneously. Where did that come from? It maybe came from the government, but it's not just happening in Britain, it's happening all over the world. It's come from the World Economic Forum. This is the man-made climate change lie to imprison you now. And they're going at it full pelt. And at the same time, we have a fight back of immeasurable importance happening now around the world. We have a potential revolution in France. And
Vive la révolution!
Yes, vive la révolution.
Send King Charles.
Yes, we'll do him in a minute. And the second one is, we have in Holland the farmers rebelling against the law of man-made climate change to close down farms. And that will happen in Britain if we don't stop it in Holland. Third one, we've got in Israel massive discontent, massive fight back against the control of the judiciary by the government. They want to take away independent government, independent judiciary.
Absolutely.
There's different things in each region. In the Punjab, the agent of the WEF, Modi, fascist Modi, has invaded the Punjab. That's because he's scared of them. He wants to end them. But he's bitten off more than he can chew. Nobody has ever defeated the Sikhs.
Come on!
The Sikhs will win. And if we can bring down the Modi regime in India, that will be a massive blow to the World Economic Forum, and the end of the Indian superstate could spell the beginning of the end of the World Economic Forum, which must be destroyed.
Yay!
So, what does that bring to here? In Britain, people, we're behind, although this country was the first one to behead a reigning monarch. Remember that.
Send King Charles to
And it
France.
was the
Social
French who
contract.
followed.
There is a social contract.
So what are we going to do? Well, we've got to up our ante on fake science. We've got to demand accountable science everywhere. We've got to fight against all this global warming nonsense. However difficult it is to argue with people, you've got to find a way of getting it across. It is lies. And secondly, we have to now take on the councils. Every council has to be taken on. We've now got big actions in a lot of boroughs. Colchester, Havering, Romford, for example, Oxford, all these things are happening. We have to go against all the councils and demand they end their climate nonsense and all the zoning. And that means a number of things. We break them directly. We travel at will and do not pay. And I now owe £45,000 to ULEZ, and I'm not going to pay a penny. I'd rather go to prison than pay anything to Sadiq Khan's corrupt scheme. And we will be taking some legal measures on this in due course. We'll let you know. But that is very important. In Colchester, the activists there have forced the council to agree to have some sort of public debate about climate. And in Romford, Havering, they're doing a similar thing. We've got to do that everywhere. And in local Camden, what are we going to do? Well, we understand Camden Council's got a meeting tomorrow, which we may want to go along and pay some attention to, let's say. Now, we're not certain at this instant what they're talking about, but please come online to find out. But if you follow me on Twitter at Piers_Corbyn or Telegram at Piers_Corbyn_StopNewNormal, those things will carry all the information. So we may go to Camden Council tomorrow because it's urgent, these matters. And the second thing to do in the immediate future is we want to urge King Charles, demand King Charles supports the people and the British Constitution instead of bowing to the World Economic Forum.
He can't be stopped by Macron. He's got a right to travel like anybody else.
Now, he's not going to France, we're told, because of the riots. He should go to France.
Send Charles to France.
Send Charles to France. So,
Send Charles to France. That's a chance.
Send Charles to France.
Send Charles to France. Send Charles to France. Send Charles to France.
And tomorrow at 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock, we're going to be going to Buckingham Palace to give this message to King Charles. And he's telling to go to France
Tomorrow or
and face
Tuesday?
the music. Sorry, not tomorrow, Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday, 2 o'clock, Buckingham Palace, meet there to send Charles to France. And I will end there with our usual slogan. Resist!
Defy! Do not comply! Resist! Defy! Do not comply! Resist! Defy! Do not comply!